Do you believe that your family should apologize for their own role in the 1953 coup? Forget America, but you have to say in your own family.
I leave it to the historian to determine what it was, but usually a coup is from below to the top, not from the top to down. That's number one. Number two, I have heard the terminology used sometimes by some saying that a democratically elected government of Mossadegh. If anybody studies the Iranian constitution of the time clearly, the prime minister was never elected. He was either appointed by the king, subject to parliament ratification, or vice versa, suggested by parliament, accepted by the king. There was not a process of if you win elections. To suggest that that one was a coup is to suggest that every single change of prime ministership in Iran must have been a coup too. If that's the case, then we had coups every other year. So think, study, understand what the constitution at the time was, and that's as much as I have to say on the subject. But I tell you one last thing, apart from that, because probably there would be impossible to achieve any consensus on this subject, if not forever, for a long time. But I have a constructive suggestion to my fellow compatriots. First of all, it would have been impossible to say that whether it was my father or Prime Minister Mossadegh, that they were both right or both wrong. But the question is, what would have been the determining mechanism to say whether it was constitutional or not? A little bit like you have here with the Supreme Court, whether an act of the executive or anybody else is constitutional or not, therefore avoiding constitutional crisis. We did not have at the time any apparatus that could have said, oh, the farman of the king was against the law, or vice versa, the refusal to be set aside by the prime minister was against the law. What entity was supposed to step in and make that determination? What if the orders carried out by military officers, whether it was following the order of the king or the prime minister, would be spared court-martial or a threat of it by going against such order, should that order have been illegal, for instance? What I'm trying to say here is that the lesson we should learn for the future is to have mechanisms and instances that can intervene should there be any kind of constitutional crisis as such. It could be something similar to what the Supreme Court here is, completely separate in the checks and balance system from the legislation and executive. It could be an element that the French have, for instance, Conseil constitutionnel, which is yet another apparatus